So, what is our world really like? Is it just a chaotic free for all where nations are basically at each other's throats all the time? Or is there some kind of hidden order to it all? Today, we're diving into a theory that offers a pretty surprising answer. It's a middle way called the English School. And honestly, it might just change how you see global politics.
Right. So think about it. Is the world just this constant, brutal struggle for power? A dog eat dog arena where only the strongest survive? Or is it more like a global village, slowly but surely, inching its way towards cooperation and maybe even lasting peace? For decades, that's been the big debate. But what if both of those extremes totally miss the point?
To really get our heads around this middle way, we first got to understand the two extreme views it's pushing back against. So let's jump into that classic debate. Okay, so on one side, you've got the realists. For them, the world is all about self interest. It's an unchanging system, just prone to conflict and, yep, eventually war. But on the other side, you've got the liberals. They see a world that's actually moving towards progress. They believe in human goodwill and the real potential for a global community living in peace. It's a pretty stark difference, isn't it?
This is where the English school comes in. It looks at these two perspectives and basically says, whoa, hold on a second. Reality is way more complicated than that. It argues that world politics isn't just one or the other. It's kind of both, and it's also something else entirely. This is what they call the via media, the middle way.
So, how do they actually build this middle way? Well, it all starts with this brilliant and, let's be honest, seemingly contradictory idea from a theorist named Hedley Bull.
Bull called it the anarchical society. Now, I know what you're thinking. When we hear anarchy, our minds jump to chaos, right? Disorder. But in international relations, it just means there's no single world government calling all the shots. And the genius of this idea is that even without a global police force, states can still form a society. Like a club with shared rules and values. The easiest way to think about it is like your own neighborhood. There's no supreme ruler of the block, right? No landlord for the whole street. But there are understandings. You don't blast music at 3 a.m. You respect property lines. You help each other out in a storm. There's order, even without one single authority. That, in a nutshell, is the anarchical society. And Bull makes a really important distinction here. An international system is just states bumping into each other, kind of like bumper cars, forced to react to what the other guy does. But an international society, that's when those states start to see themselves as members of the same group, bound by a common rulebook. It's the difference between a random traffic jam and a car club with its own established road rules. Okay, so if this is a club, what are the rules? I mean, what are the actual institutions that hold this whole society of states together? These are what the English school calls primary institutions. And get this, they're not always buildings or organizations. They're more like deep-seated practices and norms. Things like respecting each other's sovereignty, using diplomacy, following international law, and even managing the balance of power. These are the pillars that create a predictable, more or less orderly world. Another key thinker, Martin White, pictured this whole thing as a great conversation between three different traditions. You've got the realist voice, all about power and conflict. That's the dog-eat-dog view. Then there's the revolutionist voice, which dreams of a world beyond states, one single global community. And smack in the middle, you have the rationalist voice, which focuses on how states can create order and coexist peacefully through rules and laws. So the English school, it listens to all three of these voices. It gets the reality of power, and it hears that call for a better world. But its home base, its core identity, is right on that rationalist middle path. It has this fundamental belief that states are rational enough to create an orderly world for themselves. But hey, just because it's a middle way doesn't mean it's easy or that everyone agrees. In fact, inside this school of thought is one of the most intense and important debates in politics today. And it really all boils down to this incredibly tough, gut-wrenching question. If a government is committing horrible atrocities against its own citizens, what should the rest of the world do? Do other nations just stand by and respect its borders no matter what? Or do they have a duty to step in? This one question splits the English school into two camps. On one side, you've got the pluralists. They say the most important rule is non-intervention. To keep the whole society of states from falling apart, you have to respect sovereignty, period. But on the other side are the solidarists. They argue that we're all human first, and when mass human rights violations are happening, that shared humanity can, and maybe should, override a state's right to be left alone. And this solidarist argument really gained steam with a modern doctrine you may have heard of,
the responsibility to protect, or R2P. The key phrase here says it all. The principle of non-intervention yields. It's a direct challenge to the old way of thinking, saying that sovereignty isn't a license to do whatever you want to your people. It's a responsibility.
And this wasn't just a debate in a university classroom. This became terrifyingly real. In 2011, the UN Security Council actually authorized military intervention in Libya. And the official reason? To protect civilians from their own government, specifically using the responsibility to protect doctrine. It was a huge moment where the solidarist argument was put into action, and it sparked an incredible amount of debate that's still going on today.
So, what's the takeaway for us right now? Why should we care about this theory? Well, let's see how it gives us a really useful lens for understanding the world we're all living in. All right, let's do a quick recap. First, the world isn't pure chaos, but it's not pure harmony either. It's this complex middle ground. Second, states can and do form a society with rules, even without a global boss. Third, that order relies on big ideas like sovereignty and diplomacy. And finally, and maybe most importantly, there's this constant, difficult tug of war between the rights of states and the rights of human beings. So, when you boil it all down, the English school gives us the language and the framework to really understand the central drama of our time. It's that constant, messy negotiation between keeping order, the stability that this whole society of states provides, and the fight for justice for individual people, the very people the society is supposed to serve. And that leaves us with one last massive question for today. In our world, with new powers rising and global crises, from climate change to pandemics, are the unspoken rules of the club, things like diplomacy and the balance of power, are they still strong enough to hold? Or are we about to find out what happens when those rules start to crack?